Jeff Pearlman goes on a YouTube rant about me for basically revealing the inconsistencies in the stories he's been telling in public in regards to Tupac's real lived life, ladies and gentlemen, in relation to his book. I hope you're listening. Let's get into some of this straight gang.
Life is like cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy Delray Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time. Do me a favor and click on the thumbs up button. Let them know we back in the house, ladies and gentlemen. I had to come back. And respond to my YouTube followers, as well as the people who are following along with this this mischaracterization of Tupac's life, ladies and gentlemen. I'll say it like this. To all due respect to those who gave their time for this book, who sat down maybe for an interview with Jeff Pearlman for this book. Like I said, once again, he contacted me, and I respectfully declined, based on a numerous amount of reasons, if you will. But like I said, I'll leave it up to Jeff Pearlman to basically disclose that if he wishes to, and then I'll basically respond to that from that perspective. But there was a rant that Jeff Pearlman just went on, and he used a bunch of expletives in his rant on his Instagram page in reference to me. And like I said, in the criticism that was rightfully so legitimate criticism, and like I said, he seemed like he was pretty upset, if I could say the least. But let me get into this. I need you to really understand something, ladies and gentlemen. For the people that don't know, Jeff Pearlman tried to basically, I would say, wiggle his way out of the things that he's been stating in Tupac's in this book in regards to the definitive book. This is the definitive book about Tupac, ladies and gentlemen. He said he's interviewed over 600 people, right? I don't know that. I'm not going to read the book. Let me state one more time, unequivocally. Why would I read a book? Or why would you read a book? And where the author has came out and mischaracterized things that are well known publicly, and stating that Tupac wasn't about none of the things that we all know publicly. There's video, there is audio in regards to those situations, ladies and gentlemen. That is not someone who wants to do journalism. That's somebody who wants to do opportunism. It's point blank, period. And so Jeff Pearlman then proceeds to go in on me, or try to go in on me. Well, answer this question, Jeff Pearlman. Why did you contact me and try to give you an interview for your book? Because you know what I was saying was the truth, and you wanted it for your book. But because I refused to do an interview with you for numerous amount of reasons, like I said, once again, people will take your story, they'll take your truth, they'll go and capitalize off of it. I don't care how much money you're making off of the book. I really don't. As to answering whether I make money off of Tupac, yes, I do. See those plaques on my wall back there? Yeah, I make money. I make royalties because I put in the work. See, I walk those streets, 96, 95, 94. Yeah, I did that. And I don't need to go down to Lumberton, North Carolina, to see any kind of respectful memory that Afeni Shakur, may she rest in peace, left in reference to her son. Right? It's been there. It's been there. The people who knew about it. And the people who didn't know about it. Everything ain't for everybody. So when Jeff Pearlman goes on the internet and says, and news reports report that he's saying, author discovers undisclosed grave of Tupac Shakur, it's a total misrepresentation of the truth. He's not Christopher Columbus. He did not discover anything. It was always there. It was already there. It was always there for the people who understand and knew that. That is a fact. That's not a lie. That is a fact. And so I think Jeff Pearlman has a problem with me saying what I'm saying because it doesn't jive with his narrative. Like I said once again, he said, well, I went to this office, the Office of Records, to see if you can have a grave put in on your property and so on and so forth. So once again, it's telling me that he even doubted Afeni Shakur's and what she wanted to do, right? But yet in doubting her, he would take a picture of a tombstone that she laid for her son. Let's be clear, Tupac is not in the grave there. Tupac was cremated, ladies and gentlemen, by Davis Funeral Home in Las Vegas on September 14th, 1996, the day after he died. Let's be clear with that. See, this is where the factual nature of what needs to happen comes into play, right? So when a news organization reports it like that, they say, author, right, discovers undisclosed grave of Tupac Shakur. It's misleading and getting you to think that Tupac is somewhere buried down there in Lumberton, North Carolina. It's not. That's not true. And he didn't discover it. It was always there. It was Afeni Shakur's business as being the mother of Tupac Shakur, how she wanted to celebrate his death, right? From that point on, it wasn't for Jeff Pearlman to come out and say, oh, I discovered it and then put it in a book. Because guess what? If it remained private all of these years and not many people knew about it, it wasn't Jeff Pearlman's business to come out and tell the world in his book, to try to sell his book and then get it misrepresented through media outlets as to how that would be characterized. See, this is the thing that he has a problem with. I'm an intelligent individual, right? I understand. See, I didn't need to go down to Lumberton, North Carolina to take a picture of the grave and go and report and be like, yeah, Tupac grave. I didn't need to do that. I respect his mother. I respect his privacy, right? I respect his family more than to do something like that in order to try to sell a book, ladies and gentlemen. So when Jeff Pearlman uses all of these expletives in my name and all of those things, like I said once again, you can't be mad at me, right? You have to do your work. You have to do the work that needs to be done. See, because I've done the work in order to be able to stand here and speak what I speak, right? And furthermore, he goes into talking about people paying for interviews. I would think that the people who have come on various platforms that do pay people to come on their platform would be appreciative, right? If not for a performance, but someone paying them for their time, because time is a valuable thing. And see, somewhere along the lines, Jeff Pearlman didn't seem to realize that. He calls himself a real journalist. Well, let's get into that. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said earlier, and I'm going to say it again, we know, or at least I do anyway, right? Let me speak about what I know, right? Tupac, to be involved in various, like he said in his song, he said, you want to live my life. You know what I mean? But what's the high sign? You know what I mean? He talked about his felonious activities that he was involved in. We know about those. Getting caught with guns. Tupac, as a matter of fact, was still going back to court for a gun charge prior to his death he was going back to court for being caught with a gun, right? We know about the situation in Atlanta, right? We know about the various felonious activities that Tupac was involved in, correct? We know about them alleged that he shot himself at Quad Studios when that simply wasn't the case, correct? Because he was strapped and ready to go in that situation, correct? So once again, the blatant outright mischaracterization of the real life stories and events that happened around Tupac Shakur that we all know about if we've been reading and following up with his career, that Jeff Pearlman tried to come on the scene and mischaracterize as if Tupac was some square from Delaware, right? You understand what I'm saying? In order to try to gaslight people who knew the truth so that they could do what I'm doing right now. But see, the way that I'm going to do it is not going to be the way that they would do it. I'm going to give you the factual grounds in which there is the mischaracterization in trying to sell this book. And like I said, for the people who may have given interviews for the book, like I said, you gave an interview for the book. He asked me to give an interview for the book. I told him no. So if I'm clout chasing, I would have did an interview for the book to be like, yeah, I'm in the book. Nah, I don't need to be in the book. I'm in the book of history. I'm in the book of real life. I'm in the book of real engagement. I really knew Tupac Shakur. I was really at certain events that I told on the Art of Dialogue when I first got introduced to YouTube that did over 1 million views. The Billy Garland interview. Yeah. Right? The interview I did about Faith Evans and various other interviews that we talked about things that I actually experienced, not something that somebody told me. You understand what I'm saying? And so based on the information that we as people who are of enlightened minds and liking to read, once again, the situation involving that he said that, well, why didn't you go down to Lumberton, North Carolina? I didn't have to do that. I didn't want to do that. For what? I know Tupac was cremated. I don't need to do that. I don't need to, Afeni left something on their property down there in North Carolina. I don't need to go and disturb that for the world to know, for the world to now try to go down to Lumberton, North Carolina and find out where that's at and be all up on these people's property like that. That's not why she did that. She didn't do that for that. If she did, she would have did that. She would have gave a public funeral or a private funeral, and you would know where Tupac's body was buried. That's not why she did that. Unfortunately, but Jeff Pearlman took it upon himself to say, I'm going to go down there, and I discovered the grave of... No, you didn't. You took a picture of a tombstone and you put it in your book. And now all of a sudden you discovered, you Christopher Columbus, Tupac's grave. No, you didn't. That's inaccurate. That's misleading. And the news reports that are carrying this out is misleading as well. But they don't really care about that. They don't care. They didn't give a damn about Tupac when he was living. Let's be clear. Right? When the situation with Ayanna Jackson happened, go back and read some of the headlines that they wrote about Tupac. And it wasn't even that. Right? So Jeff Pearlman wanting to do this book, like I said, you're free to do what you will. I'm not talking about what he's done in writing a book. I'm talking about the mischaracterizations and outright falsehoods he's telling in Tupac's name that we know to be true based on his lived life. Interviews, newspaper articles in regards to, the shooting, the situation in New York, the situation in Vegas, and the various other situations that Tupac got hemmed up in. It was real life. He also said about Tupac's life that Tupac was acting. That Tupac was basically acting tough, ladies and gentlemen. This is a guy who never knew him. He never was around him. So if you're getting an interview from somebody and somebody says that somebody was acting like something, that would be hearsay, right? That would be hearsay versus the people who were really around him that knew and seen like, yeah, Tupac was about that life. Like I said, the situation in Atlanta tells you alone. It was a black man being mistreated by two white men, right? Tupac could have very well kept going in his car. What did he do? He stopped because he seen his brother being mistreated. And he said, hold on. What's going on? And they proceeded with the weapon that was stolen from the locker room of the police station, or the property room of the police station. They proceeded to think that they could bully Tupac, not knowing who they were dealing with at the time. Tupac then what? Responded in kind. And unfortunately, like I said, once again, he had to handle his business accordingly. So when Jeff Pearlman says that Tupac couldn't shoot a gun, he couldn't do this, he couldn't do that, Tupac was about, they say, about 50, 35 yards out and hit his target. Point blank, period. That is debunking the story that Jeff Pearlman went on the internet to tell about Tupac, someone he never met. Furthermore, we go into what? Facts, ladies and gentlemen. We go into the video of him at the gun range. You see him practicing his aim, working on his shot. As a matter of fact, and as much as I hate to admit this, Jeff Pearlman went on Bums First with Reggie the Rat Wright Jr. and Gullible John earlier today, right? And he was asked about that, and they played the video of him, Tupac, in the actual gun range doing what he was doing. And Jeff Pearlman couldn't even answer it. He went into, that was me talking stupid, misspeaking. Yeah, once again, when called to be accountable for one's words and what he's saying, he did not have a response that was adequate to the things that he was saying when he said it the first time. He basically copped a plea. He copped the plea. It's just as simple as that. And as much as I hate to recommend it, go watch over there on Bums First. Go watch the video. They asked him the question. He was like, guys, let's be clear. I know it's about accountability. Yeah, it is about accountability, right? And then to try to question one's integrity, my integrity in regards to this situation, you can't come for me. I'm not a journalist. I'm an artist who happens to do a podcast on YouTube. I never went to journalism school. You may have went to journalism school. But see, I went to the school of hard knocks. I went to the school of real life, where when you tell a lie or you do something crazy, you 9 times out of 10 gonna be called on it or be held accountable for it. That's the school that I went to. I don't get and go to the school where I can go and try to use some fancy words and obfuscate from what the real story is and try to dance around. I didn't go to that school. I went to the school where you get called out. Like, dude, that wasn't, you know what I mean? Yeah, my bad. I apologize. You know what I mean? And so from that point on, you learn how to conduct oneself. But Jeff Pearlman went on the internet and said Tupac was acting. He said Tupac was, he was soft. He wasn't about that life. He was hanging around people. He was acting. He was trying to act like he was about that life. That wasn't what he was about. Where did he get his information from? Because the information, if he claims to be a journalist, all he has to do is look up news reports about Tupac's life. You can type it in right now. You can Google it right now. Tupac's many run-ins with the law. Jeff Pearlman had the ability to do that before he went out there and made those misleading statements in regards to Tupac's life, and where he was questioned on Bums First today in regards to that and could not give an adequate answer. And he did the neutron dance, y'all, which I mean is dancing around the question that was asked. He never fully answered it because he was trying to be incendiary on that podcast when he was saying the things that he was saying in reference to Tupac. And if you were listening to him without the full knowledge and context, you would have thought he knew what he was talking about, but he didn't. So he went on a rant just not too long ago on his Instagram about me with certain expletives and all of these other things. And I had to respond. Because another thing, like I said, once again, he was talking about also the unsubstantiated police report that someone made alleging Tupac had R-worded her and Tupac's friend and something like that. His question was, so why didn't you come up with that? Because I don't entertain gossip that hasn't been substantiated. That's the reason why I didn't look for nothing like that. Why would I? Like I said, people say things all the time. Like right now, Jeff Pearlman is saying a bunch of things that are unsubstantiated, that we know for a fact are not true. So he says, well, how stupid is he? It's so, and so basically he was calling me a buffoon. Oh, I heard you loud and clear, Mr. Pearlman. I'm not going to call you any kind of names. That's not what I do. I'm going to call you out on these mischaracterizations on Tupac's life that you've been trying to lay down to sell your bogus book. It's just as simple as that. You see what I'm saying? So when you call me a buffoon, that's what you did. You did it in a roundabout, slick way, though. I got you, right? So when you call me a name, I'm going to come back and I'm going to let you, hear what I have to say in a respectful manner without having to call you a name at all. I don't resort to elementary school tactics, right? I'm going to resort to dealing with you effectively. You're a journalist, right? I'm not a journalist. I'm a musician, right? And then he went into, well, I don't know whatever the hell else he does for a living. That ain't none of your business. I handle my business is what I do. Or better yet, when somebody asks you, so what you do? Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes to take care of my family, right? But I'm not going to do anything illegal or against the law because I know that doesn't work in my favor. They say you can bend it, but don't break it. I'm doing neither. I'm on the straight and narrow. And caught me in my teens, it was another thing, right? But we'll move on from that. But like I said, once again, the mischaracterizations of what he talked about in regards to Tupac, bringing up this unsubstantiated thing about some kind of R word that happened, once again, why wouldn't I have to go about that? I wouldn't have to go about it because, like I said, it wasn't good enough for the police to even go about. Why would I want to bring something up like that? Unless I'm trying to sell a narrative about Tupac Shakur and paint a picture about him, someone that I did not know. Right? As a matter of fact, ladies and gentlemen, for the people who know, Tupac apologized for the situation involving Ayanna Jackson. He said, you know what? I feel bad. I shouldn't have left the room until she was out of the hotel. Right? But remained and was clear about his innocence in regards to everything else. We know that to be true. We know his response in music after that, basically the wonder why you call your bitch situation. And answering all of that. Even in Me Against the World, he talked about all of that. Right? So when you understand what I'm talking about, and for the people who know about it, right? You get it. The same thing with the Billy Garland situation. He said he talks to Tupac's sister Shakur, and she told him about an incident that happened in regards to not coming to the jail on Father's Day when her and Afeni and Tupac were there waiting. Ladies and gentlemen, I gave it to you earlier. I'm going to give it to you one more time because here's the interview that I conducted firsthand with Mr. Garland, Tupac's real father. Someone else who refused to talk to Mr. Pearlman in regards to his book. Once again, Mr. Garland does not like people mischaracterizing and taking out of context his word. That's why he trusted me with the interview with him after I asked him for over 1 year, ladies and gentlemen. This is not a game. So when he talks about, oh, I talked to 600 people, and I'm a journalist and you got to pay. I didn't pay nothing from that perspective and talking to Mr. Garland when we talk about, paying him for whatever. Like I said, once again, what I will do is I will compensate somebody for their time. Some people don't even wish to be compensated. This is a different area in where we're working with, and that's why a lot of these big companies come and then try to take and borrow the material that we paid to get, right, for somebody for their time, and use it for their channel, trying to get clicks and all of those things for things that we've compensated people for their time. You get it? So now they're trying to then profit off of what we do and then not pay us. The same thing that Jeff Pearlman would have tried to do if I gave him an interview with me under those circumstances, like he asked me. Let's be clear. Let's be clear. And like I said, you see all the time that a lot of the stuff from the Art of Dialogue goes viral. Recent stories, Judge Mathis. Recent stories, the brother actor, I can't think of his name right now, right? So many, Keefy D, all of those stories went viral based on the fact that they were either, more importantly, came from the Art of Dialogue, but some came from Vlad, some came from other bigger platforms that these companies, big media companies, are now trying to use based on the fact that people are being paid for their time, not for necessarily their stories. Let's get that clear, Mr. Pearlman. So what the question is why did he come to me and ask me for an interview? And why did I turn him down? Right. No, he wasn't paying me for my time. But more importantly, just the way he tried to come and act as if, he was there, he was up here, and I was down here, and he was doing me a favor. You understand what I'm saying? No. I understand what the content is, who controls the content, and the people who really live these stories, ladies and gentlemen. And for the people who don't understand that, they may never understand it. And I'm okay with that. But like I said, once again, the story about Mr. Garland. All you got to do is go over to the Art of Dialogue and watch the whole video. It's an hour long, as you see right here on the page, over 1.3 million views. When Mr. Pearlman's book sells 1.3 million copies, let me know. This is the real thing. This is the truth. The Art of Dialogue, right? These are the facts, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, he's been listening to us do what we do, right? And then trying to borrow these stories that come out from the actual people who lived them, and then now trying to go and interview them and trying to say he's coming from a different perspective. No. Like I said, why would I read a book, waste my time and buy a book that mischaracterizes things that we know about Tupac to be true? It's like, what? You've already lost me. Like, you know how people say from the first couple of pages? But like I said, I didn't even have to open the page. I'm listening to what he's saying. And when he caught flack for saying Tupac was acting, he wasn't tough, he didn't know how to shoot a gun, he didn't know all of that. Like I said, go look at the Bum's first interview and you'll understand what I'm talking about. They asked him the question and he really couldn't answer it. Oh man, that was a stupid answer. That was me being stupid. Ba-da-da-da-da. No, that was him trying to be salacious. That was him trying to say something that people would run to and he could garner up enough attention. That's why I wouldn't buy the book. That's why I wouldn't read. I don't need to read it. I read some of the excerpts online that people had put from the book, and I was like, oh, wow. Oh, wow. And I understand you tried to pick the most controversial stuff. The unsubstantiated police report that the police didn't even report on, but Jeff Pearlman decided that he wanted to put it in his book. Why? To garner attention. Shock. Right? Oh, well, no. You know what? Tupac's dad, he was supposed to see his son on Father's Day. His sister told me that Afeni and Tupac and them were up there waiting, and he didn't show. And Tupac was devastated. Shock. Right? That's not going to work. Because when you go look at this interview right here, you understand what it was. and you have full context as to where Mr. Garland stood, what was the situation at that time, right? And everything that I asked him, he answered like a man, point blank, period. We don't need Jeff Pearlman to tell us about what we live in, how we live in, and what we going through. Not from the people who are telling him, but he's now trying to put his little spin on it. I discovered the grave. The author discovers undisclosed grave of Tupac Shakur. What? People knew it was there. You just didn't know it was there. And when you found out it was there, you decided to put it in your book and you know, act as if, oh, how I discovered. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Tupac was a shooter. Tupac was a revolutionary. Legal gun owner. Point blank, period. Remember when they busted the hotel room in the situation involving Ayanna Jackson, they found guns, right? That weren't even Tupac's guns. Guns that people had left in the room. Did Tupac tell on them? No. Did they drop those gun charges because they found out his fingerprints weren't on them? Yep. You see what I'm saying? Once again, so now, in all of what we understand and know, I had to come back and address this situation because, like I said, once again, Mr. Pearlman called me a buffoon because I didn't pick up his book. No, I'm a little bit smarter than that. I'm a little bit more intelligent than that. I know when somebody's trying to hustle me and get me to buy something I already know. You can't sell ice to an Eskimo in dead cold winter where I live at. You just can't. Right? There's plenty of that going on around here. He talking about he got glacier ice. No, we good. We good. We got filtered ice over here. We good. We don't need none of that. Our ice is filtered over here. And so, like I said, once again, when we talk about the truth and the facts, that's all I'm talking about. Like I said, I made it clear the first time I did the video. I said this is not an attack on Mr. Pearlman, just an attack on the stories that he's telling, like I said, that can be debunked by clear information that is made public. I understand that lies are kind of prevailing today with today's media and people had short attention spans and all of that. But what won't happen, right, is this revisionist recreation and Jeff Pearlman trying to tie his name to the legacy of Tupac Shakur based on the fact that he did some interviews and did not know the man that he's doing the book about. The people in the book may have had relation with him, you know, and that's excluding Sexual. We know that, you know, and all of the other people that may be in the book. Like I said, once again, but trying to add one's narrative as to the discovery of a grave and this talk about Tupac wasn't about that life and he was an actor and he was soft and he didn't know how to fight and he didn't know. Jeff Pearlman didn't grow up with Tupac. He never met him. And anything that you were hearing from somebody else, once again, would be hearsay, right? So if he's not basically quoting the person who gave him the information in the story and basically trying to tell the story himself like he lived it, it's a mischaracterization. Speak on the source of who said what, right? That's the way you do it. If you're going to do it, such and such told me during the interview process that I interviewed him, like the story about Setcher was saying something about they were at the jail. You know what I mean? Like I said, Mr. Garland spoke on that in this interview right here. As a matter of fact, like I said, once again, I'll take you through this one right here. Here's Mr. Garland and Tupac at the jail. Right? So the way he told it was like, you know, Billy Garland, you know, like he Tupac was letting him back in. And like I said, it ain't what you say sometimes, it's how you say it, right? You know, like I told you before, up until that time, a few months before, Tupac thought his father was dead. It wasn't until Tupac was shot up in the hospital that Billy Garland got it from his friend who was a police officer, and went to the hospital to see his son. And that's when Tupac finally realized that his real living, breathing father was alive. Right? So if one is going to tell that story, one should tell it with context. This is basically public information. He didn't need an interview for Mr. Garland to know that, right? And I'm sure, guess what? Guess what Jeff Pearlman seen? He saw this video. He saw this. He saw this, right? So in the other story, he said, how come you didn't put the Brenda's Got a Baby, the young man who allegedly, I don't even know if it's the real story. Like I said, I won't comment on things I don't know. How come you didn't put them back together? How come you didn't find the young man that was in the Brenda's Got a Baby store and put him back with his mom? That wasn't my responsibility. And if you did that, like I said, if that actually happened, kudos to you. But that wasn't my responsibility. You know whose responsibility that was? That was that young lady's responsibility who allegedly did what she did in regards to her son. That was her responsibility. That wasn't mine. I have children of my own. I have to worry about taking care of them, you know, and trying to make sure that they understand life and what it has to offer. You understand what I'm saying? See, that's the difference. But once again, he wanted to tell that story not for the bringing back of someone to their mother and trying to help. He wanted to use that story to sell his book. It's the great grand exploitation move. I get it. So don't sit there and act like you played this heroic move, knowing damn well you used that story to try to sell your book. Wasn't about him getting back with his mom and all of this, that, and the other. You told the story to sell your book. And like I said, more importantly, on the other note, I'm hoping that if whatever's being said is true, that the reunion that this young man may have had with his mother, right, was a harmonious reunion. And I hope that they can find some kind of healing and some kind of a peace of mind in that, point blank. But like I said, see, I lived that for real in my real life, right? You know, I carry someone last name who not my father. So did Tupac. We talked about that. That was one of the things we talked about, as I've said in many videos. So a lot of us as African Americans, like I said, when you come over here to this world and dealing with us, you can't come over here playing with people's legacies and talking about they weren't this and they weren't that, trying to include yourself in their legacy by writing a book of interviews of other people who really dealt with this man. May he rest in peace. And then tell mischaracterizations and iterations of stories that didn't happen and it wasn't that and all of these other things. Claiming the discovery of a grave, undisclosed grave. Like, come on. And we're not supposed to say anything about that. Just let it fly. There's a few other things that I won't even comment on that you made. Like I said, and shout out to Yasmin. You know, she know who I am and where my heart is and all of those things. I don't need to talk to Yasmin. I don't need to talk to her. She know where my heart is. So, like I said, at the end of the day, you talk to Yasmin. She told you what she told you. It's all good. Because you mentioned her name in your rant, right? You talk to the people who you talk to, right? Okay, cool. But like I said, at the end of the day, this is what needed to be addressed in regards to the situation. And like I said, why would I ever buy a book where the person who claims to be the author of the book, out of their mouth, has come out and said that Tupac was acting in regards to the real thug life that he really lived? Somebody who didn't know Tupac, that Tupac didn't know how to shoot a gun, contrary to video evidence, news reports, basically to debunk what he's saying. You like I said, in the inception of wanting to believe in this guy's a great author and all of these things, he lost me right there. Especially if I knew the person. Why would I go buy your book? This is for the people that might not know, that want to believe, some kind of, like I say, fiction, if you will, about Tupac Shakur. Like I said, for the people who talked in the books, you can take their story for what their story. I would think sexual story, probably other family member stories, but it ain't much that ain't been covered. We had Billy William Lee Sane. I interviewed him on the Art of Dialogue. We've had a lot of people, right? Tupac's father. You know what I mean? We had a lot of people that are involved in Tupac, like intimately involved in Tupac's life. So like I said, if you want to go check that out, you can check it out on the Art of Dialogue or various other channels of people who may have had dealings. Like I said, the young lady right here, look, the young lady right here. Let's deal with it, y'all. I'm coming with the look. Young lady right here, Ethel Love. Ethel Love was in the video of Brenda. She played Brenda in the movie. In the video, music video, Brenda's Got a Baby. This is the young lady right here. And she gave in-depth details that only she could give. And nobody had talked to this lady in 30 some odd years prior to Art of Dialogue interviewing her. So when he's coming to like, yeah, the Brenda's got, Tupac made a story and called the lady Brenda's Got a Baby, right? This is the young lady who actually played Brenda. And she talks about Tupac being in Oakland, all of these, talking about people, her brother being good friends with Tupac, the whole 9 yards, ladies and gentlemen. So like I said, once again, when somebody comes and they're trying to, rewrite history, trying to include themselves so that, their name gets spoken when Tupac name gets spoken in history, saying that, can you imagine this? Let me give you some how this really works and how it goes down. So in a couple of years from now, there'll be like, people be quoting, they'll be like, because, you got to be able to know that you create and control your own narrative, right? They'll be like, yeah, remember, there was an author back in the day who discovered the undisclosed grave of Tupac Shakur. Well, who was that guy's name? Jeff Pearlman. Yeah, he was the best-selling author. Nah. I know how it goes. I know how it works. Nah. You didn't discover anything. It was already there. You took a picture of it, put it in your book, and you reported on it. And now they're saying that you discovered some undisclosed grave of Tupac Shakur. Tupac is not in that grave. He was cremated on September 14th, 1996, right? By Davis Funeral Home in Las Vegas. So I don't want people to think that Tupac is in Lumberton, North Carolina, y'all. People going there and they be like, wait, where's no. It's not true. Right? Simple as that. Like I said, once again, the alleged R word situation, it's a no news event. It was not substantiated. Jeff Pearlman was like, well, why didn't you go find the police report about Tupac in this situation? Why would I want to? It's unsubstantiated. If the police didn't think, or the prosecution didn't think to prosecute, it didn't have any legs. Why would I want to do that? Unless I'm trying to dirty his name up. If I'm trying to dirty his name up, then yeah, I would, trying to make it look. But no, the reason for that, let's be clear, as I speak into this microphone, was to garner attention, to try to sell his book. Like I told you the same thing when I told y'all about the Faith Evans situation and about the book. That was the only reason I responded. I was like, what? I was there the night Tupac met Faith Evans. It didn't happen like that. I told you the whole story on the Art of Dialogue. Go check it out. Faith Evans never came out and called me a liar. Right? She never came out and spoke out and said anything about anything that I said. You had a lot of people then trying to jump on the bandwagon, piggyback the story, right? Because they wanted to be relevant. They wanted to be a part of the story. I was just telling the story. It didn't matter to me. This is what happened. We was hanging out. It was a Wednesday night at the Hollywood Athletic Club. Point blank, period. You see? And then I offered information and documentation to prove what I was saying, along with dates, along with times. Simple as that. Not something somebody told me, something that I actually lived. The House of Blues situation with Nas, right? That many people talk about. But that's why Tupac was mad about the Nas situation, because we was at the House of Blues. We all went in together, me, myself, Melly Mel from Grandmaster Flash, Scorpio from Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, Carlito, Tupac, a couple of the Outlaws. Yeah. Tupac ain't had no security. Parked right across the street at the Hyatt Hotel. Yeah, I was there. We walked that walk, for real. Down on the House of Blues dance floor. When Nas was there, Tupac was there, we all was there the night that he met Kobe Bryant. Remember? I told that story. Because I was there. The last time Tupac talked to Shock G, I was there. Right there on the top floor of the House of Blues. The last conversation that Shock G had with Tupac, I was standing right there. And then Money B walked up. Point blank, period. Like I said, once again, because I was there. So I didn't need to go and try to find out or go down to Lumberton, North Carolina to see no gravesite, to put it in a book, to act like I knew something that nobody else knew, or act like I discovered something that nobody else discovered. I really walked the walk. Not bragging, just simply the truth. You know what I mean? And that's the way it goes. So like I said, when Jeff Pearlman calls me a buffoon, right? Calls me a name because he got called out for the misinformation and mischaracterizations of Tupac Shakur, not by just myself, but by a plethora of people in the internet world and understanding that. There's video evidence of Tupac at the gun range, handling his business. Very good shot, according to Jeff Pearlman. Tupac wasn't that, though. He knew about the video prior to even saying what he said, but he needed something to say to get your attention so that people would respond and hopefully go buy his book. He said the book is almost damn near a bestseller. But like I told you in the DM, when you asked me for an interview, I wish you the best. Point blank, period. Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your time. Shout out to Fatima. Shout out to Judon, Miss Lady. Who else? Kev V. Yaya Kids. Like she said, yeah, tell them, clap the like button. Like I said, we ain't doing this for clout. If I was doing it for clout, I would have did the interview for his book. Right? My history is my history. It's already documented in copyright papers and all of that stuff. I don't need to be in nobody's book. Right? Like I said, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate each and every one of you guys for coming through. Who is that? Chat Martin, what's good? I said, who's that? Yaquata? It said, well, Yaquata in the building. Angry Jack. And all of the people who are watching that may not be in the chat, I appreciate you too for listening. Most importantly, like I said, you could be anywhere doing anything else. You chose to be here listening to what I had to say. So like I said, once again, and I'll say it like I said it before, there's no need for me to buy the book, to read the book. I don't need to read the book because I lived the book, right? For as much as I needed to. You know, 1993 is when I met Tupac Shakur at Bowie State University. He was actually dealing with a homegirl of mine. Point blank, period. Lords of the Undergrounds. What was it? Was it North Backyard Band and Northeast Groovers? The Go-Go bands in DC. Shout out to Go-Go in DC, y'all. You know what I mean? And all of that. Like I said, I was there. Point blank, period. That's why I met him at. Jeff Pearlman wasn't nowhere near. He wasn't nowhere around at that time, y'all. So I don't need to prove nothing. More importantly, like I said, once again, they will come for you, but be ready. They will try to tell lies on you, try to recreate history. Tupac talked about this in the last interview that he did with Rob Marriott. If y'all go back and y'all listen to it, that was another name that Jeff Pearlman mentioned. Tupac said, yeah, you know, writers will come writing stories about me, about my life, blah, blah, blah. Tupac already said what was going to happen before it even happened, y'all. Like I said, once again, I appreciate each and every one of y'all. Who else? Mr. Howes, Kennard from The Wire, Ivan L., Aura, And like I said, everybody else, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your time. Your boy Delray, straight game.
Life is like some cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
They said Tupac was untouchable, but behind the walls of Rikers Island, he... They said Tupac was untouchable, but behind the walls of Rikers Island, he was just a man, wounded, watching his back, and wondering who he could trust. He survived bullets, betrayal, and isolation behind bars. But what happened inside those walls has never been told until now. In the darkest corner of Rikers, he found betrayal and a brotherhood no one saw coming. These dudes smiled in my face, then flipped and tried to kill me, and I never saw it coming. They were Puff's security, Biggie's muscle, Henchman's people, and Tupac knew exactly who sent them. This is the side of Tupac Shakur the world never got to see, told by the man who lived it with him, not in the studio, but in a 6x9 cell. The rap battles, sex and drama with female guards, the tears, the silence after Jada Pinkett's visit, and the moment Tupac almost broke. Before Death Row, before All Eyes on Me, before Machiavelli, there was Rikers. Behind the Walls with Tupac Shakur, available now on Amazon. Get your copy. Learn the truth.